After a long time, we studied MBA together. In 1987 to 18. And he says, I was recalling the old days. I used to be the mess secretary and I was there for about 2 years as a mess secretary. He says, oh, how are you, Messi? And then it all got started, the memory. It was a very interesting event. So I thought to share with you because I can really link that particular event with several things which I do right now as well. Our mess bill when we joined 1987, it was 750, which those days was like huge. So in the second month or so, all students, the MBA students and MCA students, maybe 750 or 800 dollars. We all got we protested. The then mess secretary and the committee, they came over, stood on the podium. They were also students, all like us. He said, I'm in second year. You are also either in first, second, or third year of MCA and MBA. So if you want to volunteer, you can do that. He says, I am also studying and doing these things. And I raised my hand. The complete gathering, there was nobody. And then I said, okay, I will. And my friend asked me, Atul, what do you think it made you do that? And as I recall, I am nearly always in such cases, always really certain. When I'm going for a meeting for a business turnaround, it has to be done off. For me, the thinking is somebody has to do. I will do it. So same that time also, it was not a professional setup. So I said, yes, the mess bill is huge. Somebody has to do. And then the other thing came in. Why did others not do it or got late? I got elected unopposed. There is a fear which comes in. Why does fear come in? Suppose you are in a factory, you have to lead a data. Why would fear come? Fear comes in. The talking to the student is if they could have any ego. What if something goes wrong? What if I fail? What if I don't know how things have to be done? My intention was very clear. I will do whatever is needed. And my mind was clear, certainty. Sometimes when your nervous system is very clear that okay, this has to be done, and we are not giving it a try. We will do whatever it takes. Then the mind doesn't connect. What if we fail? What if that happens or this happens? What will people say? That is very important. So one, I was in the present moment. So just remember, if you have to come into such a situation, be in the present moment. No fears of the past, no apprehensions of the future. Next, the intention was very clear. I know I don't know how to do this. I have had no past experience. I have hardly been in the kitchen because my mother and my sisters were there. I knew how to buy things, but nothing beyond. But I knew that irrespective of whatever anybody but Mary might say, systems of some order always exist. People are always there. The cooks were there, the students are there, the mess had been running for a long time. With that, I said, okay, I will do. From the next day, I got started. I had a meeting with the cooks. They explained. I had a meeting with the person who maintained the accounts. I understood. And within of 2, 3 days of observations and discussions, things came quite clearly. The wastages were very high. Students would take off mess offs. That is, on the weekends, they would go home. And it would be like, I'm going on Saturday, I may inform, may not inform, or may inform at the last minute. And wastages of food were huge. Suddenly somebody would say that, okay, this has to be done, this has to be done in menu. The menus would change, the food would go wasted. Sometimes the raw material would get wasted. So I realized that, okay, I'm not blaming anybody. First of all, in any such case, there is no point because people, I believe, do the best of it. So something in the root cause has to be seen. So then I realized and we discussed amongst the students and we took a joint decision. I had a person to support me from the MCA. In 1987, the computers had come in, but we did not have very great. So, but between the representatives from two different streams would have made a difference. First thing we did was have a discipline amongst all, which in any organization is there. So for discipline, what it meant, if people had to go on weekends, they had to inform us a day in advance. And they would get a waiver if the weekend was, the mess off was 2 days, not for half day, 1 week or 1 day. In the beginning, people said it's not possible. So we all had a own purpose. So they said, okay, and everybody aligned because the intention was very good. Next, we said, okay, what about the menu? Oh, so some people have preference for mutton or chicken, etc. So we decided we will procure the dishes which are from the local place. Because whenever the borders would get crossed, those days okra would get levied and things would get uh, very expensive. So that decided on the menu. Next, I checked with the accounts person how was the procurement happening. So we balance the procurement by we know that this month the exam season will be there, the requirement. And we had a good idea over 2 to 3 months about how the attendance pattern was. Next, what we did was having transparency because managing so many students was not easy on paper. So my colleagues, started maintaining a software. People got keen. Those days we had never heard of anything called ERP, but we made our own ERP. People coming in and going, they would just put in the small slip. They are on leave from so date. We could enter it, and people had great trust in the system because anybody could recall any moment and say, okay, yes, this was it, and this is what has been deducted, and this is what has been billed. Since the system was there, even the officials in the accounts, they also said, okay, we are working in a very clean intention. Still, we were not doing very well in the first 3 4 months. But by the second or third month, I started to do one thing more. I started talking to students and started going out to markets to see where people were having their meals. I realized certain gaps were there. We had to change the menu, and we did one more thing. People would go to the border where lots of trucks would come in, and they would have something special, something called a egg paratha. And then I came back and we started the same things in our mess. It was something because we were able to charge what they were charging there and then added to the income. And with that income, we reduced the investment. Then we made further things. There was no limit. You could eat anything and anything, any amounts. With such freedom, things people started feeling more happy. And then we had one more. We had a parents' counter, a separate area where people when their families would come over. They would be with great amount of courtesy and helpful. These small things, small nuances started to make a difference. And I was there for full 2 years, always announced. What is the learning from all this? Learning from all this is always being the present. New fears of the past, new apprehensions of the future. Be in the place of, in this case, it was in the kitchen, it was the market, it was the students, being among the students, taking feedback and working on the feedback. Feedback was many times a criticism, but we always worked on the criticism and it helped us improve our system. There is always something as a system. But when you regulate certain things, align discipline, engage people, have everybody contribute to the purpose, then that system gets made. When we know that everybody is working, that there should be no wastage, And we should have things at the right time, always of the right requirement. Yeah. No fear means no ego. Have a clear intent, have a clear communication with people, and engage with them. No authority. Authority is there, but authority always is better when people understand things and communicate two ways. Critic, process it, feedback into the systems. Next time, take a feedback as it improves. These small things made up our life joyful. The same rules apply to our business. When I get into factories, people in their own areas do the best they can. A marketing person, he knows sometimes the sales is get lost. What does he do? He says, okay, instead of 100, I will give a target of 120. The purchase person, he says many times production doesn't happen because material is less. So instead of procuring for 120, they procure for 125 or 20. But the production planning person, if suppose something is short, he says, why let labor sit idle? Why let machines sit idle? Let me manufacture something. He produces something else. And they need to get through. The production team is always under pressure because sometimes there are sudden changeovers. And with changeovers, the times get lost. So everybody is doing their best actually. And many times we see that there is firefighting happen. But if there is a system, whatever is marketing saying, our BOM bill of materials, everything is aligned and exactly in the same frequency of requirement, the material gets procured. The accounts person who has actually gone to the market to increase the working capital loan because the processing of material is much more, he relaxes. Because now our payments are also happening based on the way the material is getting used and consumed. If somebody supplies 3 weeks ahead of schedule, the payment will still be made. And these small things makes things easy, frees up the space, frees up the mind, and people work with peace. So business turnaround mind thinking is something, is always a system and a discipline. Finding out the gaps, working on those critiques, and treat customer as something who is really important. And always take care of costing. See where the leakages are. See your revenues. Where could you increase the revenues? And these things are not easy, but need intent. All the best. Thank you. Look forward. Any areas of interest, do let me know. I will speak from my experience. Thank you.